Bin was an ordinary scientist who kept records of his research and scientific observations. Previously, Bin wanted to pass the entrance exams and in the future become an honest and fair official whom all other people would respect and love. However, Bin had to put all his plans for the future on hold as the great warrior of the North Wind told him to write a book. The North Wind warrior wanted Bin to write in this book everything about his life training and exploits in the smallest detail. After meeting the North Wind warrior, Bin's life changed greatly, and he was greatly fascinated by the way the North Wind warrior trained. After some time of Bin's stay with the warrior of the North Wind, he noticed that he began to follow the same path as the warrior. Over time, people began to recognize Bin more and more, and after some time, people began to call him a man who followed the path of a great warrior. Bin spent his entire life studying various scripts. While studying another letter, Bin thought about what he would have become if he had not then met the warrior of the North Wind a year ago. Bin met and became acquainted with the warrior of the North Wind in a small hotel near Mount Haman. That day, Ben got very drunk and started talking about how muddy the water in the Sunlong River was. The owner was very angry that Bin was so drunk and was not going to leave the hotel premises. Bin recalled one incident that occurred at the test site where no one took him seriously. While pouring another cup of drink, Bin never stopped talking about the fact that at this training ground, everyone paid their attention exclusively to officials and rich children of merchants. After drinking this cup, Bin began to whine loudly and complain that this whole world was rotten and did not leave anything good in itself. The old lady immediately interrupted Bin and told him that he needed to get some sleep and sober up. However, Bin did not pay attention to the grumpy old lady and continued to complain about this world. At one point, Bin stood up from the table and began screaming even louder about how much everything was pissing him off. The old lady's patience was exhausted, and he began to think about how he could get rid of Bin. However, at one moment, the old woman saw a warrior of the North Wind at one of the tables and believed that he could easily escort Bin out of the hotel. Also, the old woman could not help but turn her attention to the sword of the Northern Wind warrior, and she believed that if this man got angry, then in a fit of anger and in a drunken state, he could simply destroy the entire hotel. At this moment, Bin suddenly screamed again, and the old lady immediately told him to stop yelling and pull himself together. Bin recalled one of the officials at the training ground telling him that if he didn't stop talking nonsense, he would have his men beat him up. As Bin lay on the table, he said that if no one knew about this situation, then this simply would not have happened. At the same moment, the warrior of the North Wind stood up from his seat and walked over to the table where Bin was sitting. When the North Wind warrior approached Bin, the old woman was very frightened by the sinister appearance of the warrior, thinking that right now he would destroy the inn. As soon as the North Wind warrior approached Bin, he told him to repeat what he had just said. Without hearing an answer from Bin, the warrior of the North Wind reached out to Bin and grabbed his clothes. When the warrior of the North Wind grabbed Bin, he told him that before their conversation, Bin needed to sober up and come to his senses. Then the warrior of the North Wind took Bin with him and left the inn with Bin drunk and stinking of alcohol. Even though Bin finally left the hotel as the old lady originally wanted, Bin did not have time to pay for everything had drunk earlier. Meanwhile, the warrior of the North Wind leaped through the forests and valleys with Bin at his side. After a couple of such long jumps, Ben was seized with panic and hysteria, from which the warrior of the North Wind concluded that Ben had finally come to his senses and was feeling better. With each jump, the warrior of the North Wind covered more and more distance, which made Bin more and more afraid. A few minutes later, the warrior of the North Wind and Bin reached one of the canyons, where Bin needed to catch his breath for a little. After this, the warrior of the North Wind grabbed Bin and lifted him over the cliff and said that if he did not come to his senses, the warrior would throw him down. A minute later, the warrior of the North Wind and Bin went downstairs, where Bin decided to wash his face and come to his senses a little. Once being finished, he told the North Wind warrior that even though he was older than him, he shouldn't do this to him. Bin said that the warrior of the North Wind treated him very rudely and impolitely, to which the warrior himself said that Bin was very hot-tempered. In response, Bin shouted at the North Wind warrior and told him that his actions were not in accordance with imperial laws. Then the warrior of the north wind reminded Bean how he spoke about the injustice of this world and that in this case, there was no point in following its laws and rules. At one point, Bean became very frightened when he saw the serious attitude of the northern wind warrior and the way his robe was developing despite the fact that there was no wind nearby. Suddenly, the northern wind warrior clenched his hand into a fist and swung it towards Bin, which made Bin himself decide that now the northern wind warrior would simply kill him. However, at that moment, a huge stone suddenly appeared which the warrior of the north wind destroyed with his blow. After the blow, the warrior of the north wind looked at Bean and told him that if he truly considered himself a man, then he must take on the world with his own strength. A little later, the warrior of the north wind took a closer look at Bean and realized that he was far from being an ordinary person. Then Bean asked the warrior of the north wind what he wanted from him and why he brought him here. The north wind warrior said that he brought Bean here because he was drunk and because he wanted to ask him for something important. Then the warrior of the north wind asked Bean what he meant when at the end he said that if no one knew about it, then it didn't happen. Bean said that's what he meant, that if no one saw or knows about something, then it's the same as if it just didn't happen. Ben also said that the path to the Chongo government building should always be bright and always filled with some events. Bean said that these words were written in Chono itself on one of the bamboo sheets. Bean added that officials usually record everything in Chongo down to the smallest detail, and if no one wrote anything down in Chongo, then no one would ever know about various events of the past. Bean said that everything that is not described in Chongo will never be captured anywhere again, and then no one will know about it, as if it simply did not happen. In the end, Ben said that all the events described by Kono will be known to their ascendants even centuries later. The warrior of the north wind agreed with Bean's opinion and said that everything that is not described is quickly and quietly forgotten. The north wind warrior looked at Bean and told him that he was indeed right, that if no one knew, then it would never happen. Then Bean agreed with the warrior of the north wind and said that if nothing more was required of him, then he would return to his business. Just as Ben was about to leave, the warrior of the north wind finally introduced himself to Ben as Jack. Then Ben turned to face Juk and also introduced himself to him as Song Bin. After that, Jeek pointed his finger at Bean and told him that from that day on, he would write a book about him. Bean didn't fully understand what Jeek wanted from him, and he felt that Jeek needed to write his biography. Jeek really liked this word, and he thought about calling his biography by his own name. However, after a couple of seconds, he decided to call his biography The Memoirs of the Hero Sejek, which greatly confused Bean. At first, Bean thought that Jeek was drunk, to which Jeek said that he really liked his temperament. Jeek also said that in order to imbue any letter with spirituality, you need to write it with ink with pure energy. After that, Jeek took a small stone from the ground and told Bean that if this meaningless conversation continues, he will kill him. After that, Jeek squeezed the stone in his palm and demonstratively, without much effort, crushed the stone into small pieces. Being understood that he had no other choice, and by his silence, he showed Jia that he agreed to write his biography. That same night, the old woman slept in one of the rooms of her hotel and thought about Ben and Jeek, who never paid for their orders. At one point the old woman was awakened by loud knocks on the door, and she decided to find out who decided to come here at such a late time. Jack was standing near the door, holding Bean on his arm, and he told the old lady that they both wanted to stay here for the night. Jeek also said that he will definitely pay for what he ordered this afternoon with Bean. At first, the old woman wanted to drive Ben and Jeek away, but she thought that she could get some benefit from the fact that they both paid not only for their dinners, but also for their lodging for the night. And she let them in. Bean was somewhat annoyed that Juk was forcing him to write his biography and decided that he needed to do something about it. Then Bean decided to quietly leave the hotel premises under the cover of darkness and run away from Jeek as far as possible. However, at that moment, the wall behind Bean collapsed, causing Bean to lose his strength and fall to the floor. JC emerged from the damaged wall and told Bean that there was no way he could escape from him. Bean was not at all happy with the fact that Jake could allow himself to behave this way just because he was stronger than Bean. Bean said that since he did not have the same power as Jeek, his only option was to escape. However, Jeek felt that everything that had been said just now were just ordinary excuses, and he wanted to know the real reasons why Bin decided to do this. Being said that in the past, the seven saints always tried to hide when trying to avoid danger, and that bowing their heads did not mean something shameful. However, Jeek thought otherwise, and he thought that if a person bows his head once, then he will do it constantly throughout his life. Jeek said that such people, who constantly bow their heads, are also called slaves, and Bean asked Jeek not to insult him. Jeek stood up and told Bean that there was one thing he was very wrong about. Jeek said that B's decision to run away was extremely stupid and thoughtless. Sinan would now never be able to escape from him. Then Bean immediately pitifully shouted to Jeek that he was too arrogant and confident that he was special. To prove to Bean that he was wrong, Jeek suggested that Bean test him, since he was confident that he was capable of escaping from him. Jeek told Bean that he would be staying in this hotel for the next 3 days, and during that time, Bean could try anything to try and escape from him. Bean did not fully understand what exactly Jeek was up to, and he decided to find out from him about it. Jeek told Bean that he could use any help, from asking local residents for help to turning to the emperor himself. However, no matter how Bean tries to escape from Jeek, he will still find him no matter where he is, and no matter what he does. The next morning, Bean and Jeek sat at their desks eating breakfast, as if nothing had happened. The old lady was very surprised that despite the fact that last night Ben and Jeek almost killed each other, today they were sitting peacefully at breakfast and did not argue with each other. After breakfast, Bean stood up, thanked the old lady for the delicious breakfast, and got ready to leave. Before leaving the hotel, Bean handed the old lady money for breakfast. However, the old lady refused Ben's money and said that Jeek had already paid for everything last night. However, Bean insisted that the old woman accept his money since he could not allow a stranger to pay for him so easily. After that, Ben pointed his finger towards Jeek and told the old lady that this man was going to spend the night in this hotel for another 3 days. However, Jeek decided not to pay any attention to Ben and simply continued to finish his breakfast. The old woman looked askance at Bean, who was about to leave the hotel in fits of anger. A couple of moments later, Bean left the hotel after slamming the door with all his might. Bean continued on his way, still angry that Jack could afford to behave this way with Bean. After walking a few tens of meters, Bean suddenly decided to run away from this hotel as quickly as possible. As Bean ran from the hotel, he thought that he would have to put all his original plans on hold for now. While running, Bean planned to get into any carriage, drive to the village, and assemble a crew there to deal with Jeek once and for all. At this moment, Jeek looked towards Ben and thought that he had not experienced such genuine interest for a long time. A few minutes later, Bean reached the nearest settlement from where a carriage with passengers was about to depart. The carriage was about to leave, but at the last moment, Bean appeared, who wanted to find out where the carriage was going. The carriage driver was somewhat embarrassed that Bean stopped his carriage without even knowing where he was going. The coachman told Bean that this carriage was heading to Muhan and asked him if he was going to go with him. Tired from a long run, Bean thought briefly and decided that he would go to Muhan with him, after which he got into the carriage. During the trip, the other passengers chatted with each other and advised each other on places they should definitely visit while in Muhan. While the other passengers were peacefully communicating with each other, Ben was still recovering and hoped to get to Muhan as soon as possible. One of the passengers who was sitting next to Bean noticed another passenger and thought that he looked very much like a merchant. That passenger said that he was indeed a merchant, after which he spoke about one of the great families, the Naman family, which has great influence in Muhan and which monopolized the entire local trading market. This passenger also said that all the officials and government officials in Muhan are members of the Naman family. Being believed that in addition to studying martial arts, masters also engaged in trade. After a couple of hours, the carriage with Bean and the rest of the passengers finally reached Muhan. Upon arrival in the city, Bean first decided to rent a room in one of the local hotels. Once in his room, Bean experienced indescribable relief after such a tiring journey. However, Bean was somewhat dissatisfied with Muhan's intense heat, the small size of the room, and the loud noise outside. Bean thought that even if Jeek wanted to find him, it would be extremely problematic since even getting to Muhan is not easy. Bean decided not to stay in his room too long, and he decides to look around a little. the first thing Bean decided to do was climb to the highest floor of the Yellow Crane Tower. Bean found himself on the top floor of the tower and could not get enough of the beautiful view that opened up to him from the highest floor. Bean remembered how during his studies he read a poem by Lebec and how he wanted to be in this tower. But then he had no idea that he would end up here under such strange circumstances. While Ben looked at the city from the tower, he began to recite to himself a poem by Lebec which he remembers from his days as a student. However, before Bean could finish speaking, he was interrupted by a man standing behind him with two girls. The man told Bean that he was not alone, after which he told Bean to shut up. Bean apologized for his behavior and told the man that he was being too rude. The man could not believe what he heard, and one of the girls asked the man to stop behaving like that. However, the man did not listen to the woman and ordered Bean to repeat to him what he had just said. Bean didn't understand why the man was so angry with him, because he just politely pointed out his rudeness. The man did not understand how such a non-entity as Bean could tell him how he behaved. Bean told the man that judging by his attire, he was a nobleman who should not behave so inappropriately. After a second, the man adjusted his clothes slightly to show Bean his sword, from which Bean deduced that the man was a martial artist. Mrs. Gansong, who was with Master N, told him that this scientist was not mistaken in anything. Gonson also noticed how beautifully Bean retold the old poem, and if he gives Master Naman advice on his upbringing, then he should listen to him. Also, Master Naman felt extremely embarrassed because Mrs. Ganson said that he had been illiterate since childhood and tried to stay as far away from writing as possible. Ben looked at this from the outside and did not understand why Mrs. Gansong spoke so boldly about Master Naman, since she only worsened the current situation. At this moment, Master Naman held his grudge against Mrs. Gongsan and told her that she would soon regret what she just said. After this, Master Naman turned to B and told him that he would now bear responsibility for his rash act. Bin became very scared when Master Naman told him that he would pay for publicly disgracing a member of the Naman family. Then Master Naman took out his sword and said that as punishment, he would cut off Ben's tongue and hand for his action. Lady Moan tried to stop Master Naman and said that he should not show his strength on someone who is much weaker than him. Moan also added that such behavior was not in keeping with his family, to which Master Naman himself said that he himself had the right to decide what behavior could be appropriate for his family. Master Naman said that he would punish Bin and show him how to behave in front of members of the Naman family. Bin was very frightened, and he did not understand how he should act in such a situation in order to end the conflict and survive. Then Ben ordered Master Naman to stop since such action did not comply with imperial laws. However, Master Naman said that this did not concern him in any way since he believed that the law would be on his side. Master Naman told Ben that he was the first to threaten him, but Ben himself did not understand when he threatened him. Master Naman also said that in addition to threats, Ben also dared to pounce and attack him. In addition, Master Naman was absolutely confident that all eyewitnesses would confirm his words. After this, Master Naman prepared his sword and told Ben that he himself was to blame for what was about to happen to him. As a result, Master Naman said that a careless mouth always leads to sad consequences, after which he immediately attacked Ben and prepared to cut off his hand. However, just as Ben was moments away from his death, Master Nan was immediately thrown aside by something. At that moment, a mysterious woman appeared in front of Bean who saved Bean from inevitable death. Master Naman immediately wanted to know what kind of woman this was, to which she replied that she was one who deserved mention. However, this woman also said that she did not want to tell her name to people like Master Naman. Then Master Naman demanded that this woman tell her name right now, since he believed that it was extremely shameful if a person did not want to give his name. Then the woman with the sword stood in a fighting pose and said that if Master Naman could defeat her, she would tell her name. After this, Master Naman shouted to the woman with the sword, how dare she interfere in the personal affairs of the Naman family members. Then Mr. Naman said that he would definitely make this woman regret her intervention. At that same second, Master Naman rushed towards the woman with lightning speed, hoping to end her life as soon as possible. However, Master Naman did not even have time to realize how the woman instantly repelled his attack. As soon as Master Naman returned to his fighting position, the woman pointed in his direction with her other hand. The woman pointed out how after the first attack, Master Naman began to shake with fear. Lady Moan was surprised how Master Nan's attack was repelled in an instant. Master Naman was scared, and he tried to grab his sword as tightly as possible so as not to accidentally drop it. At that moment, the woman decided to take advantage of Master Naman's position and attacked him. At that same second, the woman attacked Master Naman, while he was able to repel the attack with great difficulty. Before Master Naman had time to get into a fighting position again, the woman attacked him again. This time Master Naman was unable to withstand such an attack, and his sword fell from his hand. While Master Naman tried to hide the pain in his hand, the woman said that this sword gave its owner an excessive temperament. The woman also said that the lightness and emptiness of the sword speaks of the meanness and weakness of its owner. After the fight, the woman put away her sword and told Bean to follow her, which Bean did. While the woman and Ben were leaving the battlefield, Master Naman shouted to Ben that their conversation was not over yet. Finally, the woman told Master Naman that she still agreed with his opinion that a careless mouth always leads to the most unpleasant consequences. However, Master Nandan himself no longer turned his attention to the woman and Ben, and he only tried to relieve the pain in his hand. When Bean and the woman left the Yellow Crane Tower, Bean immediately began thanking the woman for her help. One day, the woman herself told Bean that he shouldn't show his gratitude to her so clearly. Bean immediately said that this woman saved him from certain death, and he could not help but show her the extent of his gratitude to her. The woman with awkwardness in her voice told Bean that she didn't actually intend to save him but simply mistook him for another person. After a short silence, the woman wanted to ask Ben something but immediately changed her mind about asking him. The woman told Bean to be careful next time, as there was no guarantee that next time he would be as lucky as he was today. The woman also told Bean not to get involved with the masters of Mirim since for them, the sword was a kind of embodiment of the law. Bean said that he was extremely careless and that in future he should be as careful as possible. In fact, Ben simply could not think that Master Naman could so easily try to use a weapon in public. Then Bean thanked the woman again for her help, after which she was about to leave. Before the woman left, Bean introduced himself to her and asked her to give her name. However, instead of giving her name, the woman said that she had not done anything special so that she could give her name. Bean did not give up and once again asked the woman to give her name in order to know who exactly saved him today. Then the woman stopped, turned to Ben, and introduced herself as Kaso, which meant fog over the river. As soon as Ben heard her name, Hassan walked further towards the sun which had disappeared behind the horizon. Then Bean decided that she asked him not to take her name so personally because she would disappear as suddenly as the fog. Bean stood near the tower of the Yellow Crane and did not suspect that he could meet such a person on his way. That evening, Bean headed to one of the local restaurants to eat well and go relax. Since Ben was very tired today, he ate a lot of cups of noodles. After the last cup of noodles, Ben thought it was time for him to go back to his rented room and get some rest. At that moment, several members of the Naman family burst into the restaurant with their guards. People became very frightened when they saw so many people from the Naman family, and most of the visitors immediately decided to leave their places. Naman emerged from the crowd of guards whom defeated in the tower of the Yellow Crane with her father. Then Master Naman pointed to Ben and said that it was he who attacked and made him. Then a couple of large Nong family guards immediately headed towards the table where Ben was sitting. When the Nong family's guards reached Ben, he immediately stood up from his seat and tried to understand what exactly was happening right now. Nan's father approached Ben and suggested that it was Ben who dared to attack Master Naman and beat him. At first Ben wanted to say that he did not do anything with Master Naman, but he felt that it would be wrong to tell them the truth that Master Naman was beaten by Hassan. Then after a couple of seconds, Ben said that it was him, but Master Naman was the first to draw his sword, to which Ben simply told him that he was behaving somewhat rudely. At first, Nen Senner did not understand why Ben said that, and he decided to ask him where she is now Huan. Then Ben honestly told Naaman Senner that he did not know where Huan was now. Then Endon Sr. sent guards to him and told Ben that he would let him think again. Ngong family guards grabbed Ben by the arms, preventing him from freeing himself from the tight grip. Nandan Senner told Ben that he would go with him and that he would definitely deal with such a scoundrel as Ben. Ben immediately began demanding that Nandan Senner tell his guards to let him go right now. Ben also told Nandan Sr. that he was not acting according to imperial law. Nandan Senner told Ben that he knew very well people like Ben who would not shut up until they were hit hard. Then Nandan Sr., hoping that Ben would shut up immediately, prepared to hit him in the face. At that moment, a loud and rude male voice was heard from the other end of the banquet hall. This man turned out to be Jake, who said that he knows how to deal with such incapable guys. Bean was shocked that Jake was able to find him and be here so quickly. Naman Sr. also didn't understand how Jack ended up here so suddenly, and he asked him who he was and how he ended up here. Instead of answering the question, Jake said that he was not going to introduce himself to such bastards. Then Nen Senner believed that Jake simply did not understand who he was talking to now and ordered him to leave here. Jahi just laughed and told Nandan Senner that if he really thinks that he can do him any harm with his surname and title, then they are just knave fools. At one point, the dark aura that surrounded JK's body immediately headed towards the guards who were holding Bin. In less than a second, Jake's dark aura greatly weakened the Nong family's guards. After a couple of seconds, both guards fell to the ground unconscious, which greatly frightened Nant Sr., after which he took out his sword. Jack looked at Nen Sr. and told him that his thoughtless statements could lead to dire consequences. Nina was so frightened that due to the strong shaking in his body, he could not do anything to protect himself. While Namena was shaking in fear, Jack prepared to strike him, concentrating all his strength into this blow. However, moments before the strike, Bean grabbed Jay's hand and asked him to stop. At first, JC didn't understand why Bean was so concerned about the fact that these people should remain safe and sound. Then Jake reminded Bean that a couple of minutes ago, these people grabbed him, threatened him, and were preparing to harm him. However, Bean told Jake that if he killed them all, then he would not be much different from them in his actions. Jake didn't fully understand Bean's logic, and he didn't understand why he wanted to let them live. Jake told Bean that if a lion kills a rabbit, then he will not become a rabbit, and therefore he may well teach these scoundrels a lesson. However, Bean didn't care and kept asking Jake to stop and leave these people. Then Jake said that he would leave these people on the condition that he still agreed to fulfill his request. Bean said that he would under no circumstances follow Jake, but if he promised to spare these people, then he would definitely listen to him and fulfill his request. Then Jake said that he would not touch these people and would let them go back to where these people came from. Nandan Sr. and his guards had no choice but to leave the restaurant. As Naaman Sr. and his guards left the restaurant, Naaman Sr. said that his family would not forget this shame. Jake said that it would have been much funnier if the head of the Naaman family had said the same thing to them now. After that, Jake looked at Bean and told him that it was time for them to talk about his request. That same night, the owner of the hotel where Jake lived for 3 days said in a dream that she was finally glad that Jake had finally left. While the old woman was sleeping, she was awakened by loud knocks on the hotel door, and she decided to find out who came to her so late this time. When the old lady opened the door of the hotel, she saw Jake and Ben in front of her, who again needed to spend the night here. Jake said that they could not forget the taste of the wine that the old lady treated them to during their stay. The old woman understood that these guys wouldn't just leave here, and she had no choice but to let them in. When Ben and Jake entered the hotel, the old woman prepared stewed vegetables and meat for both of them. While Bean and Jake were sitting at the table and eating, Bean decided to ask Jake how he managed to find him. Instead of giving a clear answer, Jake only said that it was not difficult for him. Bean told Jake that he was just a student who failed his exams and could not possibly be equal to a person like Jake. Then Bean wanted to ask Jake what difference he made to such a simple guy like him. Jake then said that his main goal was Pimu, a mortal battle with the Merm Masters. Jake said that his opponents were very strong and serious, and few ordinary people could compare with him. However, Jake was not at all worried about how strong his opponents would be, as he was completely confident that he would easily defeat all his opponents. Being wondered how Jake was going to fight all his rivals alone. Jake then said that he was going to defeat all his enemies with the help of the 4 Mum stars. Mum had many different powerful clans and families that were known throughout the world. Among all these majestic and influential clans and families, there were great masters who were all called the 4 stars of Mirim. Each mummer master was only interested in destroying anyone who stood in their way and reaching the peak of their capabilities. While Jeek was telling Ben about the 4 stars of Mirim, Ben thought that all this looked like some kind of legend. Jeek said that if the stars of Mirim tried to use the power of their influence in battle, he would give them such an opportunity, after which he would wipe them out from the face of the earth in their final battle. While Jeek was eating his stewed vegetables and meat, he said that if everyone said that this did not happen, then it would be extremely unforgivable. Then Jeek reminded Bean of his phrase that if no one knows about something, then it is equivalent to the fact that it simply did not happen, and Jeek could not afford that someone would not know about his victories. Then Bean felt that Jeek needed him to make sure that the people Jeek would fight would not kill him and make him the embodiment of evil. Jeek said that this is exactly what he needs, since everything that is written down will remain true, and everything that is not written down will never happen. Being said that they live in a world in which a person can believe that a deer is a horse if you convince him of it long enough and repeat it endlessly. Then Jeek grabbed Bean by the hands and told him that from that day, Bean would go with him and write down all of JK's actions in a book. Jeek told Bean that his greatest fear was that no one would know about his exploits, and then all his life's achievements might disappear into history along with him. Ben then said that it would be extremely difficult for him to follow the path with Jeek since he did not know anything about martial arts. Jeek told Bean that he should not worry about this as Bean will always have Jeek. Bean looked at Jeek and thought that he was probably the only person who believed with all his soul that Bean could cope with such a task. Bean also remembered that he was now Jeek's debtor, and therefore there was no way he could refuse his request. After a couple of seconds, Ben sat up and said with complete confidence in his voice that he would definitely fulfill Jeek's request. After dinner, Bean went to his room and wrote on one of his sheets a phrase that Confucius himself once said. Bean wrote on a piece of paper that if a warrior has humanity, then he never grieves. If he is wise, then he does not doubt anything, and if he is brave, then he is not afraid of anything. Bean certainly understood the meaning of this statement, but he also knew that he did not possess any of these qualities. The next day Bean and Jeek climbed one of the nearby rocks, thereby Jeek trained his endurance. While Jeek was able to climb to the top of the cliff without much effort, a tired Bean looked at him and did not understand how Jeek did not experience any fatigue. It was even more incomprehensible to Bean how JK could rise so easily with such a heavy sword on his back. When Jeek and Bean decided to rest for a while, Jeek told Bean that he was extremely weak in body, while Bean himself did not understand how Jeek could compare them to each other. When Ben drank half of his drinking water, he decided to ask Jeek if he was tired after such a long and difficult climb. However, instead of answering the question, Jeek asked Ben how he felt after getting up. Jeek told Bean that the reason Bean gets tired so quickly is because he doesn't breathe properly. Jeek told Bean that shallow or labored breathing could disrupt the body's rhythm, and this could affect Bean's thoughts as he tried to look for other things to explain his weakness. Bean said he understood that, but it was difficult for him to understand what exactly he should do in such a situation. Jeek told Bean that he needed to keep his concentration slowly and steadily so that he could continue on his way with ease and confidence. Before Jeek could finish his thought, Ben immediately took out a paper and began to write down everything that Jeek just told him. Ja Huk says and does so that he can write about it in a book. Jeek looked at the piece of paper and told Bean that he had great writing skills. Bean said that despite the situation he found himself in, he still had excellent handwriting. Bean also boasted that he had studied writing for 10 years and was proud of the beauty of his handwriting. However, Jeek said that he was not talking about his handwriting, but specifically how Bean writes. Jeek noticed that Ben wrote without any hesitation in his palm, even when he pressed on it. Jeek also said that Bean had an extremely confident hand movement while he was writing, and Bean was extremely pleased to hear that. Towards evening, Ben and Jeek went down the cliff and headed towards the hotel to rest after such a hard day. Bean immediately fell on the bed completely exhausted, and he did not even have time to change clothes. Jack suddenly entered Ben's room, which scared Ben very much. Half asleep, B did not understand what Jeek needed from him at such a late hour, and he decided to ask him about it. Jeek opened the window in Bean's room, directed his attention to Luna, and told Bean that they both needed to go outside. When Ben and Jeek walked out of the hotel onto the street, Bean didn't understand what exactly Jeek wanted to do now. After a couple of minutes of walking, Jeek stopped and took out his huge sword. Bean didn't understand what exactly Jeek wanted to do, and the more Bean looked at JK's sword, the stranger the sword seemed to him. After a few seconds, Bean noticed that Jay's sword began to a subtle and mysterious glow. After a couple of seconds, Jeek made several strong swings with his sword. With one last swing, Jeek chopped several tree leaves into small pieces. Bean looked at JC's masterful skills and thought that he urgently needed to write this down. Meanwhile, Jeek never stopped swinging his sword and demonstrating his skill. At that moment, Bean decided that he couldn't be distracted by his writing right now, and he continued to look at Jeek. At one point, Jeek stood against the backdrop of the moon, which only further expressed his skill. After that, Jeek went down to Ben and asked him if he saw everything in his techniques and movements. Jeek said that the Mumstars call it the sword arc of the wisdom of heaven. After that, Jeek extended his sword towards Bean and said that this sword is called the Moonlight Blade. Bean said that he saw everything that Juk had just shown him, but he did not fully understand what the meaning of it was. Then Jeek said that it was time for them to go back to the hotel since another training awaited them tomorrow. Then next day, Bean and Jeek again headed towards the canyon to continue their training. A few hours later, Ben and Jeek again descended from the canyon towards the hotel to regain their strength. As they walked, Jake felt that Ben seemed to want to tell him something, and he decided to ask him about it. Bean said that he did not understand whether he was worthy to see what Jeek showed him yesterday, since Bean had heard that Mum warriors did not demonstrate their fighting skills. Jeek said that these were not all his skills and he is ready to show Bean many more of his techniques if he wishes. Jeek told Bean that he immediately realized that Bean did not realize the meaning of his techniques, and he said that each movement in his techniques had its own unique meaning. While Bean thought about the words of Jeek, he added that a true warrior is able to predict the outcome of the battle, and for this, he only needs to see all the indecision in the eyes of his opponent. Jeek also said that if a warrior does not put meaning into all his actions, then he will not be able to control any situation. Bean did not argue with Jeek, and he told him that he completely agreed with his opinion. Jeek also said that another very important reason for Ben's weakness is his hunger. A second later, Ben felt a strong rumbling in his stomach, and he was surprised that Jahu knew about it so easily. When the sun set, Ben and Jeek headed to the nearest village to a restaurant to have a proper dinner. As soon as Ben and Jeek entered the restaurant, Ben immediately began looking for an empty table and a waiter. He asked one of the employees to take them to a table and serve them, to which the employee replied that he would be free soon. Bean did not contradict the worker and decided to wait for the first worker who could serve them. Then, following Ben, Jeek entered the room, who wanted to find out why Ben had not found a free table. As soon as Jeek entered the dining room, all the customers and employees turned their attention to JK. At that same second, one of the restaurant workers came running towards Ben and Jeek, who wanted to serve Jeek as soon as possible. While the worker escorted Ben and Jeek to their place, Jeek told the worker to bring the best dish paired with tea and wine. Bean felt that working in such an establishment was very exhausting for people, both physically and mentally. While B and Jeek walked towards their table, Ben looked at the guests and saw among them both influential officials and frightening and already slightly intoxicated warriors. Then Bean decided to determine the degree of influence of the guests and the attitude of the staff towards them, since if the guest was unremarkable, then the employees tried to serve such guests last. However, if the guest was extremely respected and influential, then the workers tried to serve such a guest as quickly as possible, so as not to make them wait again and to show the guest all the hospitality of the establishment. Jeek then believed that Bean saw him as a respected and honorable guest, while Bean himself did not understand how Jeek still did not understand the extent of his influence over the restaurant workers. Then Jeek drank his tea and told Bean that he was thinking too much, since he was quite capable of waiting until one of the workers was free and could serve him. Bean figured that Juk was only saying this because no one had ignored him in such establishments before. Jeek said that he could not do anything about the fact that the workers might be busy with other things, and that he did not care at all about the attitude of the workers towards him. Jeek also said that if one of the employees behaves rudely in front of him, then he just needs to teach that employee some manners. Jeek also said that he was more concerned about other people who were also in this restaurant. While Yuan was trying to understand who Juk was talking about, he was increasingly peering at the other end of the banquet hall where JK was looking. 2 guys and 2 girls were sitting, who were also carefully looking at Ben and Jeek. Bean looked in their direction and noticed that these people did not look like the MIM warriors at all, to which Jeek said that he did not say anything about him being worried about the warriors. One of the guys who was sitting opposite Ben in JC's table drew the attention of one of the girls to the fact that they continued to look in their direction. Another girl noticed JC's large black sword and wondered what kind of person he was. Another guy noticed that such large swords are usually used by a certainly Huzan from Shanyi province. Then the first girl said that she was almost sure that this person was not in Pan's records, and that there was no information about this sword either. Another girl became increasingly worried that the 2 men were still staring at them, and she believed that these 2 had come here to deal with them. However, the first woman said that these men could not possibly be mercenaries since they did not try to hide their gaze in any way. One of the guys noticed that the energy of the man with the sword was so strong and terrifying, as if the Shaolin monk himself was standing in front of him. The girls were stunned by what they heard, and they did not know what to do in such a situation. Then this guy decides to break through the energy of the man with the sword to try to find out something about him. While this guy was trying to break through JC's energy barrier, the glass of tea he was holding in his hand immediately began to shake violently. JC noticed that the guy was trying to break through his energy, and he decided to show him and his buddies the power of his energy. When Jack focused his gaze more strongly on that guy, and at that same second, his glass of tea immediately cracked and broke right in his hand. This guy looked at his broken glass and told his partners that the man with the big sword had very strong energy that was not so easy to pierce. This guy's partners were shocked, and they immediately tried to find out from him what exactly happened. That guy said that the man with the big sword was able to turn his power against him, while this guy was trying to break through the barrier of his energy. After that, the guy showed his partners his tea-soaked hand and said that the man with the sword was somehow able to break the guy's mug in his hand. The other partners said that they did not feel any extraneous energy. Then the first woman did not understand how that man with the big sword managed to use his energy without them noticing it. With every second, this woman wanted more and more to understand who this man with the sword really was. After that, the woman asked this guy what he thought about the scribe with whom the mysterious man with a sword came. The guy said that this scribe was an ordinary person, which only made the man with the sword even more suspicious. Then the woman said that in that case, they would all have to stay here overnight. The rest of the partners considered this idea irrational since this man with a sword showed aggression towards them. The woman said that these guys were really starting to show their unfriendly attitude, but she was not going to just forget about this act. Meanwhile, Ben and Jeek just sat at their table and enjoyed the local food. A few minutes later, Ben and Jeek each rented one room for a temporary overnight stay. Jahu came to B's room to see if Ben had gone to bed yet, and Ben said that he suspected that they would have to go out again that night. On the way to the training place, Ben asked Jeek why it was so important for him to go out to train at night. Soon Bean and Jeek reached the training site, and Bean laid out everything necessary to record all of JC's actions. Bean as usual wondered how many lines about Jeek's training he could write down this time. Bean looked at Jeek and thought that this man in his stamina and strength reminded him of a high mountain or a wide river. At that moment, Jeek said that it was time for someone to come out in front of him and show themselves. Bean believed that Jeek was talking to him, but he did not fully understand what exactly Jeek meant. A second later, the guy Jack had been looking at in the restaurant came out of the bushes, and he sincerely asked Shahak for forgiveness for his bad manners. However, Jeek didn't believe the guy's apology was sincere, and he told him that he didn't have to apologize. After that, Jeek pointed to the guy and asked him why his partners still continued to sit in their shelters. At that moment, another guy and a woman came out from another hiding place, who said that she just wasn't completely sure that she wouldn't bother him. Bing looked at these people and realized that these were the same people that Jack had been staring at so intently. At this moment, Jeek reminded these people that he had already warned them that if these people did not leave him alone, they would regret it very much. After that, Jeek pointed his hand towards Bean and made one strange hand gesture. After this gesture, a girl who was also with those people fell out of the bushes behind Bean. While the girl was trying to recover from being pulled out of the bushes by Juk, Ben couldn't understand how this girl could be hiding so unnoticed in the bushes right behind him. Jeek said that he didn't care that these people were trying to hide from him, but he couldn't forgive them for choosing to hide in a place like that. Jeek with all her anger, which frightened Ben very much. After that, the girl found herself next to a woman who sincerely asked Jeek for forgiveness for insulting him so much. However, this woman said that this girl named Hannah was just following her orders, and she could not resist Jeek, and so she was told to attack the scribe also in her address. This woman named Jeektaham, which meant master, to which Jake told her not to call him that, because he didn't care at all about his righteousness. Jeek also noticed to this woman that she was one of those whom he disliked with all his soul. However, the woman was not at all upset by this, and she decided to take it as some kind of compliment. After that, Jeek said that it was time for them to end this empty talk, and he told his opponents to start testing his skills. After that, the guy who came out of his hiding place first introduced himself as Vajin Gadin, said that it was a great honor for him to cross his blades with JK. Jake told Gadin that it was time for them to stop showing their hypocrisy and finally start fighting each other. Gadun said that during the entire time he spoke with Juk, he did not say anything hypocritical, and that everything he said to him was a manifestation of a sincere impression of him. Gadin then pulled out his blade and said that he had sworn to himself to never retreat if battle was inevitable. Bean couldn't believe what he was seeing. In front of him was JC's first Pima battle. While Ben looked at Jeek, he transmitted his thoughts into his head, through which he told Ben that he needed to calm down and not give in to his rage. When Bean mentally asked Jeek how he managed to transfer his thoughts into his head, Jeek told Bean to just look at him. When Ben looked at Juk, he saw in him the same look with which he made Gadin break the glass in his hand in the restaurant. Ben was glad that despite such a critical situation, Ja-Huk was still full of confidence. At that moment, Gaijin jumped very high in order to try to hit Jeek as hard as possible when falling. However, Jeek was easily able to substitute his sword and repelled Gad's attack. After Jeek repelled Gad's attack, he immediately threw him aside with his sword. After Jeek threw Gadin away, he immediately tried to attack him back, but Gadin managed to dodge. While Gadin was in the air, Jeek swung his sword at him while Gadin was in this uncomfortable state. However, when Jay's sword approached Gadin, he simply jumped away from his sword even higher. Bean couldn't take his eyes off the fight, and he just couldn't take his mind off the sight and start writing. The rest of the partners who came with Gadin watched the battle and expected its final outcome. Bean also watched the fight between Jeek and Gadin, thinking that these people were simply pushing Jeek aside. However, despite all the efforts of these people, Bean was completely confident that Jeek would not allow these people to gain the upper hand over them. At one point, Jeek tried to come Gad and throws his sword towards the ground as hard as possible, but Gadin still manages to dodge. Before JC could raise his sword, Gadin decided to take his chance to inflict significant damage on Jeek. However, Jeek manages to throw Gadin back several meters with his energy force. When Jack threw Gadin away from him, he told him that Gadun had indeed performed well in battle, after which he demanded that the fight end right now. However, Gadin was not going to end the fight so easily, and he told Jahu that there was nothing better for him than fighting such a serious opponent as Juk. Jeek then thought that Gadin was having a lot of fun fighting him, and he thought that all of Gad's previous opponents were weaklings. Then Gadin asked Jeek if he really considered the Shaolin masters and students of the Wasan clan and other members of powerful families to be weaklings. Then Jeek said that a person's belonging to a clan or family does not make him strong. After hearing this, Gadin said that he was changing his battle tactics and used his energy to increase his fighting skills. However, Jeek was not at all afraid of Gad's decision to use his energy in battle, and he ordered him to attack him. Then Gadin attacked Jeek with great speed so that he did not even have time to realize that he had managed to strike him. Instead of preparing to fend off Gad's attack, Jeek raised his sword and began to lower it. For a moment, Gadun thought that Jeek was lowering his sword too slowly, and he continued to run towards him. After a few seconds, Gadon realized that he would not have time to dodge JC's attack. However, instead of trying to dodge JK's attack, Gadon decided to speed up and try to attack Jeek in time. However, at one point, a powerful shock wave formed in Gad's place, through which it was difficult to see Jeek and Gadin. When the dust from the shock wave cleared, everyone saw Gadon, who bowed down in front of Jeek. Gad's partners were shocked that he was unable to defeat Jeek with his technique. Bean looked at Jeek and realized that he managed to defeat Gadin in this fight. Hannah told her mistress that they needed to leave here as soon as possible, but her mistress insisted on staying. Meanwhile, Jeek told Gadon that he was pleasantly surprised that Gadon met his skill head-on. After a couple of seconds, Gadon stood up and said that he had lost in this fierce fair fight. Jeek told Gadon that he is like a wolf that follows the moon and howls after it. After JK's statement, Gadon thanked him for such a correct remark and stepped aside. The lady said that she would like to thank Jeek for sparing the stupid and knave Gadon. However, Jeek was extremely disgusted to listen to the lady, and he asked her to spare him her apology. The lady said that if she could, she would with great pleasure give Jahuk the status of the most powerful man in the world. Jeek told the lady that he had previously done everything possible to achieve such a majestic title. After that, Jeek turned to the lady and told her that if the tiger does not live among the mountains, then a wolf or even a dog can easily defeat him. Then Jeek asked the lady what was the point of trying to become the strongest man in the world. The lady completely agreed with Jeek and said that this title belongs to the strongest warrior of Mirim, and accordingly, such a title also belongs to his clan, and that this is not the highest title. The lady also added that a person or clan with such a title can rule over everyone and accept challenges without any obligations, which makes it possible to be called the most powerful person or clan in the world. G did not take the lady's words seriously and said that he thought that she was thinking in this direction. The mistress's companions could not believe that Jake could talk to their mistress so easily. Jeek also told the lady that since she wants to give him such a title, then she recognizes him and in the future, she wants to subjugate him to herself. Jeek also said that there are probably many people in the world who would like to serve blindly, to which the lady herself said that this is not so. Jeek also said that he has another reason why he will never join her. Jeek pointed out to the lady Bin, who was writing, letting her know that he was the reason. Jeek said that this man kept records of all his actions so that the story of his life would be preserved after tens or even hundreds of years. Jeek told the lady that if he joined her, then Bean would write about this in his history, which Jeek simply could not allow. The lady said that history is written by the victors, and thus, Jeek will gain immortality in these records and the memory of people who will definitely become familiar with his story. Jeek told the lady that she was indeed one of those people who was disgusting to him. Jeek also told the lady that her subjects were just like wolves who run after the moon and howl after it, while the moon itself doesn't care about these wolves and just goes where it needs to go. After that, Jeek told Bean that if he was done writing, they could go back. Gadon saw the state his mistress was in, and he asked her if she was okay. The lady turned to another of her subordinates named Suka, and demanded that he find any information about this Jeek. The lady also demanded that SOA find information about this clerk who was with Jeek. Hannah suggested that the lady follow Jeek and his clerk, but the lady said that there was simply no need for this. Gadon noticed that Jib knew who she was and still insulted her so easily. The lady said that she would never forgive such behavior towards her, and that these two would definitely regret it. On the way to the hotel, Jeek told Ben that he would be fine, but now he would have hard days ahead. The next day, Ben and Jake went to the seaport to sail from there to San Province. While Bean and Jeek were sailing on the ship, Bean noticed that Jeek had changed his clothes for the first time. Looking at Jeek in such an outfit, Ben thought that he looked like the leader of some clan. Bean approached Jeek and asked him where his sword was now, to which Jeek said that it was very close. B also told Jeek that this outfit suits him very well, and asked him why he doesn't usually dress in such outfits. Jeek said that he was very annoyed by such outfits, and Ben asked him why he was wearing this outfit now. Jeek said that they would have to sail through the naval station, and if the soldiers saw him in ordinary clothes, they would raise the alarm and attack him, which irritated him even more. Then Bean said that Jeek could easily deal with all the soldiers who attacked him. However, Jeek told Bean that you cannot live in this world and rely only on your strength. Jeek also said that wherever a person goes, he will fall into a stream, and if a person tries to resist these streams, it can lead to sad consequences. Being believed that Jeek was talking about the streams of the path of heaven, since these streams were also world streams. Bean told Jehu that if they were heading to San, they could sail from the port near Mount Holland or take a ship from Muhan. Then Bean assumed that Jeek was making such a big detour to avoid something. Bean also noticed that by wearing such an outfit, Jeek could disguise himself in it. Jeek told Bean that he was absolutely right, and that he was hiding from someone he couldn't defeat. Bean was shocked that there was even a person in the world that Jehu couldn't handle. Then Bean believed that this very man had promised Jeek to fight him to the death. Jeek then said that he would not avoid someone who promised him a fight to the death. Then Bean thought that he should do his best to find out who this person was that Jeek was avoiding. A few hours later, Ben and Juk sailed to San, where it began to rain very heavily. Upon arrival in station, Ben first went to the local archive to find information about the man with whom Juk was one day supposed to fight. Bean spent a long time studying local archives in search of the necessary information, but he was never able to find any information. Then Bean decided to start studying his notes to try to find out something about this man. That evening, Bean and JK went out again at night so Jake could continue his training. Meanwhile, Bean continued to keep new notes about Jeek, describing his every move in great detail. When Jeek finished training, Ben handed him his notes, telling him that this time he described much more than the first time. JC told Bean that his training remained the same, but Bean's notes included many more long and complex words. Being justified this by saying that he could now see even more details in JC's movements that he considered necessary to describe. Jeek said that this is completely unnecessary, because if the reader often pays attention to small details, he will lose the main idea. JK also told Bean that the deeper a person's understanding, the easier it will be for him to see things around him. After training, Ben returned to studying the rest of the archives and thought that Jack was right about his depth of perception. Then Bean began to think that despite the fact that Jehu asked him to keep records about him, he never explained to him why he decided to do this in the first place. The next day, Ben stopped in station and B decided that he should take a short walk. When Ben went outside, he noticed that it was extremely hot and humid in station. Bean was especially upset that the fan he bought from one of the local sellers did not help him at all, and he assumed that this fan was more just for beauty. While Ben was walking, he saw a bamboo forest where there was a lot of cool shade, and he decided to go to this forest. As soon as Ben entered the wilds of the bamboo forest, he immediately felt better, since it was actually quite cool in the forest. While Ben walked for a while in the bamboo forest, he saw a familiar silhouette in the distance. It turned out to be Hassan, who once saved Ben from the rude and uneducated Master Naman. Bean was very confused, and he did not know what to do in such a situation. While Ben was trying to figure out what to do, Hassan just walked past him without saying a word to him. When Chuang walked past Ben, who wanted to tell her something, but when he turned back, Huang was nowhere to be found. When B and Ja Huk went to the restaurant, Bin began to repent for not saying hello to Hassan and not thanking her. Then Bean thought that if he had time to say something to her, and she also would not have paid attention to him, he would have been even more uncomfortable. While B was completely lost in thought, the waiter brought him a whole plate of spicy noodles. Then Bin decided to forget about this incident and simply started eating his noodles with pleasure. Jeek sat down at the table with Bean, who told him to eat as much as possible since today would be a particularly difficult night. JC's mortal battle would take place today. A few minutes after dinner, Ben and Jeek left the restaurant and took a cart to their destination. After a few minutes of driving, Ben and Jeek reached a high canyon, to the top of which a long and high stone staircase led. Having reached the very top, Bean looked down and could not get enough of the beautiful view that opened from the top of the canyon. At this moment, Jeek looked to the side and said that he came here as he promised. A few meters away from Jeek, there was an old man standing in front of a bamboo forest. The old man said that he thought that Jeek would not keep his promise, since this meeting would be their last. The old man also noticed the guy behind Jeek and asked Jeek who he was, to which Jeek said that this guy was just watching and recording everything he saw. The old man told Juk that he had not changed at all since their last meeting, and he assumed that even Shion is not under his control. When the old man stopped talking, Bean immediately began to write down everything the old man had just said. The old man was surprised that Ben was actually recording everything that was happening, and Jeek told the old man to tell the one he was hiding so that he would finally come out of the bamboo thickets. A young guy came out of the bamboo, whom the old man introduced to him as his student, named Soren, whom he decided to teach despite his old age. After this, the old man introduced Jeek to Soren as his